To be conscious in a sick world is a daily form of suffering. Carl Jung. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. There is a kind of peace that comes with not knowing. A soft, quiet peace. The kind that wraps itself around your life like a blanket. Warm, familiar, and blinding. You wake up, go to work, pay your taxes, scroll through the same feed, celebrate your weekends, plan your vacations. You believe you're free, you vote, you speak, you dream, and you truly think you're in control. But you're not. You are a thread in a web you don't see. You move because someone pulls. You speak because someone lets you. You dream because someone shaped your dreams before you even had the words to name them. That's the comfort of ignorance. You don't question the rules because you think you wrote them. You don't see the bars because they've been painted to look like freedom. You don't resist because you don't know there's anything to resist. There is beauty in that blindness. There is ease. You laugh. You love. You carry the illusion of progress, and it feels real. And maybe for some, that's enough. But the moment you begin to see just a crack in the wall, everything begins to shift. The world you thought was solid starts to dissolve. The jobs, the schools, the laws, the news, the promises, none of it is what it seemed. And it hurts, because it was easier when you didn't know. It was lighter. You could believe in things. You could trust the smile of a leader. You could hope your effort mattered. You could think that the system was flawed, but fixable. But none of it was broken. It was designed this way. Still, in that first life, in that sleep, there is comfort. And for many, that comfort is enough. No guilt, no burden, no questions. Just the sweet lie that sings you to sleep every night. Everything is fine, but everything is not fine. And once you feel that, truly feel it, you can never go back. It always starts the same way. A small thought, out of place. A feeling that something doesn't add up. Maybe it's a moment when you realize that the harder you work, the less you seem to have. Or when you notice how the news repeats itself like a broken loop, changing faces, but never outcomes. Maybe it's when you begin to wonder why real change never comes, no matter who's in charge. That first crack isn't loud. It's subtle, almost quiet, but it spreads. Because once you've seen one lie, your eyes start scanning for more. And when you find them, they're everywhere. You begin to see that the structures you trusted are not just flawed, they're fake, constructed, designed not to liberate you, but to contain you. You were taught that governments exist to protect people, but you start to notice they protect wealth, not people. They protect control, not freedom. You realize that your birth certificate is not a record of your identity, but a registration of you as property of a system. You were told the economy is based on value, but you begin to see it's based on debt, inflation, and illusion. Money is printed out of thin air, yet you're expected to trade your life for it. The game is fixed, but no one admits it. You work to survive, and the harder you push, the more they take. It's not broken. It's built this way. Education doesn't teach you to think. It teaches you to obey, to follow instructions, to sit still and repeat what you're told. The brightest minds aren't rewarded for seeing through the system. They're punished, discredited, or ignored. Medicine promises healing, but it sells subscriptions to symptoms. You start to see that the solution is never the goal. Maintenance is more profitable than cure. Misery is more profitable than peace. The justice system doesn't care about justice. It cares about control, order, and obedience. And as this knowledge grows, so does the weight. Because it's not just about facts, it's about the collapse of everything you believed. It's about losing your innocence. You no longer see the world as a place of fairness and reason. You see the machinery behind the curtain, the deals, the manipulation, the theater. Elections become performances. News becomes narrative. Everything starts to feel scripted. The actors may change, but the script stays the same. Left or right, up or down, it's all part of the same engine. The same hands on the same levers, wearing different masks to keep the audience calm. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But the most painful part isn't realizing how deep the control goes. It's realizing how few people want to see it. You try to talk about it. You try to share what you found. But most people don't want the truth. They want comfort. They want stories that help them sleep. You become the strange one, the uncomfortable presence in the room, the one who sees too much. And the more you understand, the more you feel isolated. The more you see, the more you feel like a ghost walking among sleepwalkers. You begin to understand why people cling to their illusions. Because truth is heavy. It's cold. It's lonely. It doesn't offer hope. It doesn't offer escape. It offers only itself, and it demands everything. You lose friends. You lose your sense of belonging. You realize how much of society is glued together by shared lies. Take away the lie, and the connection fades. You stop fitting in. You start drifting. But in that space, something else begins, something fragile, something powerful, a kind of inner freedom, a sense that, even if the world is a lie, you are no longer part of it. You are no longer controlled by what you don't understand. You've stepped out of the illusion, and that step changes everything. Because even though it hurts, even though it isolates you, there is a strange kind of power in seeing clearly. You begin to rebuild yourself, not on belief, not on tradition, but on truth. Hard, raw, unapologetic truth. And while it doesn't make life easier, it makes you real. And that is the first taste of something that cannot be taken from you. The moment you cross the line into full awareness, there is no celebration, no reward, no applause, just silence, heavy, consuming silence. You begin to see everything, not pieces, not glimpses, but the full architecture of the world. You understand how economies are manipulated not for growth, but for extraction. You see how wars are manufactured, not for justice, but for control of resources and influence. You see the illusion of democracy, the illusion of ownership, the illusion of freedom. You understand that nations are not sovereign entities, but subsidiaries in a global structure run by corporate and financial interests far removed from public view. And when you reach that level of clarity, there is no going back to ordinary conversations, because the language of sleep no longer fits in your mouth. You no longer believe the narratives you once held sacred. Education becomes a system of indoctrination. Politics a stage conflict between actors reading from the same script. Media a hypnotic loop feeding curated emotion, not truth. Religion is twisted, institutionalized, weaponized. You see how every structure that promised to guide humanity was corrupted to serve hierarchy, to maintain control, to keep people small, obedient, divided. The more you understand, the more isolated you become, because the deeper the truth, the fewer the people who want to hear it. It's not just that they don't see, it's that they actively reject it. Truth offends the comfort they have built their identities on. And so, you become the problem. You become dangerous, not because you hurt, but because you see. This kind of isolation is not loneliness in the traditional sense. It's existential. You walk among people who laugh, plan, fight, celebrate, but all within a framework you know to be fabricated. You're surrounded, but unseen, present, but disconnected. You stop reacting the way others do, because your mind is no longer bound to the surface-level game. You start choosing silence over argument, presence over noise, and that distance grows. You can't share what you know, not because it's forbidden, but because it's unbearable to those who still believe. The truth demands maturity, stability, and a willingness to be broken. Most people are not willing to lose their illusion, no matter how painful the illusion is. They prefer pain. They know over uncertainty they can't control. You also begin to understand the cruelty of knowledge, not because the truth itself is evil, but because it strips away innocence. When you see the manipulation of populations, the manufacturing of enemies, the conditioning of entire generations through entertainment and fear, it changes how you relate to the world. You stop expecting it to be fair. You stop waiting for justice. You stop assuming things happen for good reasons. You learn that most people are not victims of circumstance, but prisoners of design. Their suffering is not collateral. It is intentional, built into the machine, necessary for the engine to keep running. And once you see that, you can no longer participate with a clean heart. But knowledge is not just isolation. It is also liberation. When you know the rules of the game, you can stop playing it blindly. You can choose your role. You can move in silence. You can detach from the emotional hooks designed to control you. You become immune to the usual tricks, the fear cycles, the moral outrage, the identity traps. You start to build from within, not just resistance, but resilience, not just understanding, but strategy. Because now you see clearly, and clarity is power, even if it is quiet, even if it is invisible to those still inside the dream. The paradox is brutal. You've lost your place in the world you knew, but you found something deeper, something unshakable. The cost is everything you were. The reward is everything you could become. And now you carry a truth that will never let you sleep the same way again. Intelligence is not just a gift. It is a weight, a relentless, sharp-edged burden that grows heavier the deeper it goes. True intelligence is not about solving puzzles or memorizing data. It's about perceiving the hidden patterns, recognizing the invisible architecture behind everyday life. It's about understanding not only what happens, but why it happens, who benefits from it, and what it costs. And when your mind opens wide enough to see how everything connects, from government policy to global finance to human psychology, you can never close it again. You become someone who sees the gears of the machine, not just the surface it projects. And this awareness begins to cut, not like a knife, but like gravity, pulling down on everything you thought you knew. You realize that intelligence isolates not because it makes you better than others, but because it separates you from the comfortable illusions that keep others going. You can't unknow that money is created as debt, that central banks operate outside democratic control, that inflation is theft, rebranded as growth. You can't forget that pharmaceutical empires thrive on sickness, not health. That tech platforms mind behavior, not serve connection. That war is not a tragedy, but a business model. Intelligence shows you that the world is not what it claims to be. It's not broken, it's rigged, not chaotic, calculated. The chaos is curated, the disorder managed, the crises designed. And once you understand that, you can't look away. But intelligence doesn't just expose systems, it dismantles belief. You stop believing in saviors. You stop waiting for reform. You see that revolutions are rebranded resets designed by the same powers they claim to overthrow. You realize that history is edited, that science is bought, that progress is weaponized. You see that nothing arrives at your screen by accident. Every narrative, every panic, every trend is engineered for impact, for distraction, for control. And while others react to headlines, you scan for motive. While they debate symptoms, you look for structure. But this kind of clarity is lonely, because the more you understand, the more you feel like you're living in a world of actors reciting lines in a script you no longer believe in. There is also pain in seeing too far ahead. Intelligence allows you to project, to anticipate, to feel, before it happens, the direction of events. You sense how easily freedoms erode, how people accept new rules when fear is injected just right. You see how culture shifts in orchestrated waves, how attention is steered, how chaos becomes the justification for tighter control. You watch people celebrate their own chains, confuse surveillance for safety, mistake noise for truth. And though you may scream internally, on the outside, you remain still. Because you know speaking will not wake them. It will only expose you. But intelligence also offers a rare kind of sovereignty. You stop being programmable. You stop reacting to the emotional bait. You stop chasing validation. You begin to observe, to study, to build your inner fortress. You may feel pain, but you are no longer surprised by it. You may feel rage, but it does not own you. You become deliberate, controlled, aware, and this changes how you move through the world. You don't fight every battle. You don't shout your truth. You learn the art of silence, the strength of withdrawal, the power of invisibility. Not because you're weak, but because you're awake. This burden reshapes you. It burns away the superficial. It forces you to find meaning beyond noise. And eventually, it forges something stronger than certainty. Clarity without attachment. You still feel, you still care, but you are no longer fooled. You carry the weight of what you know like armor, not to fight, but to endure. Because once you understand how the world truly works, you realize that the greatest strength is not in changing others, but in remaining yourself within a system designed to erase you. There comes a moment when you must face the final question. Not whether the truth exists, but whether you actually want it. Because the truth does not welcome you with comfort. It does not offer relief. It does not heal your wounds or tell you everything will be fine. The truth is not a safe place. It's a blade that cuts through illusions, and once it touches you, the bleeding doesn't stop. It removes the layers that once protected you. Your faith in systems, your trust in authority, your belief that the world is mostly good. It doesn't replace them with anything soothing. It simply leaves you with what is, raw, exposed, unfiltered. And the cost of that clarity is your old life. Most people think they want truth, but they want the version that confirms their story. They want selective insight. They want to feel smart without being devastated. But real truth strips you of all narratives. It shows you how humanity has been shaped, controlled, harvested. It shows you that politics is theater, that democracy is a managed illusion, that education teaches obedience more than wisdom. It shows you that the systems feeding you are the same ones feeding off you. It reveals how control is maintained, not through force, but through consent, and how consent is manufactured through fear, distraction, repetition, and social reward. You see how history was written by victors, how culture is designed by architects you'll never meet, how reality is coded into your psyche without your knowledge, and you understand that your personality, your tastes, your ambitions were not born from freedom but from programming. At that point, something inside you dies. Not in a tragic way, but in a necessary one. The child in you, the one who believed in fairness, in heroes, in purpose, fades. And what replaces it is not bitterness, but emptiness, a neutral silence. The world stops being magical. It becomes engineered, structured, efficient in its manipulation. You stop looking for justice in unjust systems. You stop expecting peace from those who profit off conflict. You stop confusing law with morality. And as that awareness grows, you face the real burden. Now that you know, you have to live with it. Every smile you see from a puppet on screen, every national anthem, every advertisement, every so-called choice, you see the machinery behind it, and you realize how alone you truly are in that awareness. But in that loneliness, something new is born. Not hope, in the traditional sense, not optimism, but inner strength. You stop looking outward for guidance. You stop waiting to be saved. You begin to build something inside yourself that cannot be touched. A kind of clarity that doesn't need validation. A kind of presence that doesn't need to be seen. You stop arguing. You stop chasing. You become still. You begin to move with intent. And in that stillness, you find something sacred. Not a belief, but a knowing. That even if the world is a cage, your mind doesn't have to be. That even if control exists, freedom can still be claimed. Not outside, but within. So the question isn't whether you can handle the truth. The question is whether you truly want to carry it. Because it never gets lighter. It never gets easier. There is no arrival. There is only the slow, steady weight of knowing. The silence that comes with seeing too much. The strength it takes not to lose yourself in the noise. Most people won't make that trade. Most will stay asleep, even if the dream turns to nightmare. But a very few, will step across that line and never look back. Not because they're fearless, but because they're ready to be free, no matter the cost. There is one last truth, and it's the one no one tells you. It's not about governments or banks or secrets behind the curtain. It's about what happens inside you once you know. When you carry the full weight of how this world is really built, something shifts forever. You stop hoping for rescue. You stop waiting for someone else to explain, to fix, to lead. You realize, painfully, that the moment you choose truth, you become responsible for everything you see. There's no one left to blame, and that's the real cost. But there's a gift hidden in that weight, a gift no system can give you. You get yourself back, fully, completely. No more masks, no more bending, no more pretending to believe in what you know is a lie. And even if the world stays the same, you don't. You become untouchable in a way slaves to illusion never will, because the system can only control what it creates. If you step outside its story, it loses its grip on you. That's the final difference. When you choose comfort and blindness, you live someone else's life. When you choose truth, even with all its pain, you live your own. So here is the tool. One question. Ask yourself this quietly, honestly: do I want peace at the price of myself, or truth, even if it breaks me? And your answer will show you who you really are. We're sure you've discovered plenty of value, so subscribe now and stay connected.